What makes the first spot interesting is the pretty large rut that leaves a pretty good sized hole for my wheel to actually hit and come up against, and you'll see the bush wheel fold underneath and twist. And that's what's really amazing about these bush wheels is you can hit stuff, and if you're running them at 2 or 3 psi, it just takes all the abuse and shock out of the airplane. The gear has come a long ways, or I shouldn't say the gear, but the shock. I'm running the Acme Gen 4s, and you can see the travel on those where they really do work. They're moving and absorbing a lot of the hits that I take also. So the shocks that we had 10 years ago are, crap compared to what we have today. I had this footage from about a week ago, and I wasn't sure if I was going to do anything with it, but I thought there was a couple interesting things on it, so I decided to go ahead and throw it together. And then the next spot that I land, I've landed this spot many times. Usually I land it to the south, which is opposite of what I'm doing today. But with the wind, I figured I could get in there and get stopped. Now, this spot has changed. The bank has deteriorated and sloughed away, so it's gotten shorter over the years. Usually I land this spot in a turn, kind of picking up my wing and landing up against that bank, but opposite. So today I come in and I land over the sagebrush or Scotch broom, and I drag my wheels through it, but I probably should have got them a little bit deeper into it. And the first time that I went through it, I ended up basically kind of ending up at the rough stuff at the very end. And psychologically, because it does drop off about 30 feet, I definitely ended up more to the right than I wanted to. I included some footage of it from inside the airplane just so you could kind of see, me bouncing around and then trying to get over the bump that my bush wheels are up against, where I'm actually looking over the bank. And it looks like from inside the airplane, it really did look like I was right on the edge of that bank, and using so much power, you could just see yourself going shooting out over it. So I was being very cautious with the power as I was trying to make the turn back to the direction that I wanted to take off from. There are times when I say, maybe I was testing my luck too much and I don't try a spot again the same day. I wait for maybe better conditions, or maybe I just say to myself, that's just not a spot to land. This particular spot, I knew that I had the room. It was all in my approach and my touchdown speed and how deep I got my tires into the Scotch broom. So it wasn't a matter of being safe doing it. I knew I could do it and make it right. I guess you could say I test myself. There's usually nobody I fly with that I test myself against. That's kind of a double-edged sword. I don't want somebody to be following me around and wreck their airplane. So I typically fly and land places by myself. If someone's with me, I kind of let them do their thing, and sometimes maybe I'll land a spot that they've landed, but I never really encourage somebody to follow me around and land a spot that I just landed. Most people wouldn't see this as a stress reliever, but this is something I do for fun. I go out and I land places that are short. If they're not challenging, I'm not getting any better. Of course, there comes a point where you can only get so good with what you've got. Then the equipment either needs to change, or then you start wrecking airplanes. So there is a balance, and I try to maintain that balance because rebuilding airplanes isn't my favorite thing to do. This is Cottonwood Island. It's south of Kelso, Washington. It's been my playground for close to 20 years, and it's always changing. It's an island that I believe was built from dredgings. They're constantly dredging the Columbia River and pumping the sand onto this island. So places that I landed 20 years ago are completely gone, buried. They'll come in and clear out all the trees, and then they'll pump the sand into a new area. Trees will grow in, and usually something's new and interesting. The beautiful thing about having a local playground like this is it's only 15 minutes away from where I hangar my airplane. So I can be down here after work during the summertime and have plenty of time to play. There's all different kinds of landing sites, from high banks to sandy beaches to around trees, to really rough spots to big spots. So pretty much anybody could play down here with a set of bush wheels. It's not private, so it's open as far as I'm concerned to the public. I've never been questioned as to whether it's legal or not. There's been accidents down here. Can't say how many, but I know of a few. And so try not to do things that would jeopardize our playground. This is a nice place for me to come. It's not Alaska, but it keeps me tuned up so when I want to go to Alaska. This spot here coming up is a place I named Daryl Spot. It's a spot that Daryl landed with his Pacer one day. It's actually a lot shorter than it looks. It's probably only 350 feet long, and if you're landing it the direction I just did, it's got kind of a little gnarly bump at the beginning, so if you end up low on it, you could basically take your gear off. And the first time I watched Daryl land it, he was low, and it launched him, and he still landed it. He managed to get it landed. And I said, that looked exciting. And I said, if you land it 2 more times, you get to name the spot, and we'll call it Daryl's Spot. And that was the wrong thing to say. In fact, I regret doing that, because that egged Daryl on, and I should not have egged someone on into landing a place that they basically barely got away with the first time. But he landed it 2 more times, and we named it Daryl's Spot. This spot here is the one that I made a video of called Super Cub and Ditches, I think. I'm landing it the opposite direction this day, and it's just a big whoop-de-doo at the very beginning. Launches me, come down, launches me again, come down, hit that big sand pile, and I slowed the video down so you can see the tire impact and the gear do its thing. And then taking off, you know, it just bounced me into the air, and I was probably flying in 50 feet. We used to name all these spots that we landed, and so we could kind of tell where we were by the name of the spot. For instance, there was a spot named Bent Gear. There was a spot named Broken Gear. Now, Broken Gear really didn't ever break any gear, but we thought it could, and that's how it got its name. Both Bent Gear and Broken Gear are gone. Now, Bent Gear really did bend a gear. I was landing it with my Maul. It was a 235 horse Maul, and I had put extended gear on it. It was not certified at that time. The airplane was, but the gear wasn't. It was something that I had created. And later on, Bill Duncan actually STC'd that particular gear at Alaskan Bush Wheels. And so now people actually can buy it and put it on their Mauls. But the first set that I ever built, there was a few things wrong with the truss design, and so in the end I had an engineer look it over and give some recommendations, and I rebuilt the gear, and that gear was literally indestructible. I'm pretty sure you'd tear it off the airplane, or, you know, basically tear the fittings off before you'd ever bend the gear again. Well, I gotta get some fuel, and you know what to do, subscribe. This is a hot start. Basically, it's just wide open throttle, and be ready to pull the power back.